Good evening, everyone. We're getting ready to start our meeting. So I'd like to call a meeting to order. For verbal attendance, board members starting furthest to my left, please state your name for the record.
Diane Stefani.
Michael Corman.
Scott Nelson.
John Heggie.
Natalie Jektorowicz.
Jim Baumstark.
James Dolan.
Okay, welcome to our March 14th meeting, Pi Day. I'd like to make this statement. Our focus in District 34 is on educating, encouraging, supporting, and caring for children. As a board and a district, we send our hopes for safety and peace to the children of Ukraine and to all children living in war-torn areas around the globe. The board also strongly stands against hate and specifically wants to denounce the recent anti-Semitic messages that have plagued our community. We embrace and celebrate different backgrounds, cultures, beliefs, and religions of all members of our community. To our Jewish staff, students, and family members, you belong in D34. All right, everyone. Let's move on to section B, our approvals section. I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Did you get that, Katie? That was Natalie
Natalie. Yep.
and Diane. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'd also like an approval of February 15th, 2022 regular and executive session minutes. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved, Corman.
Second Heggie.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll move on to our communication section. Is Dane going to speak right now?
Here remotely. Hopefully everyone can hear me.
Yes.
I just wanted to say briefly during this section that I do apologize for not being able to be in attendance in person at this board meeting. I am assisting a family member who is in need, but I just wanted to make that publicly known. And I'll have some other comments as we get into some other agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you, Dane. Now it's time for our audience comments section. This is the first opportunity for audience comments. Anyone wishing to address the board can submit a comment card, which is available at the check-in table, and give it to the Director of Communications and Strategic Planning. The director will call community members who submit cards forward. They will be asked to introduce themselves and describe their relationship with the district. If a community member in the overflow room wishes to make a comment, they can give their comment card to the D34 staff member on duty in the room. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Please also know that the board will be taking notes, but we will be in listening mode only, and an appropriate response will be given in a timely manner. We also ask that you submit one comment per opportunity. Kathy, do we have any comments?
We do. First up is Dan Bosmos.
How you guys doing? First of all,
Dan, can I ask if you speak with the microphone so that people, there's a, if you want to
Sit down.
That way everyone that are watching on YouTube can hear you too.
Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry about that. I usually don't speak with the microphone, but my relationship with this district is I went to this school. I grew up in this community, and we're back. My family and I just relocated back here, and I want to thank the district for, opening their doors to our family and our son who has special needs, and that's primarily the reason why we moved back to Glenview. I really didn't have to, strong arm my wife a little bit to move back here. But the reason why I'm speaking today is I spent 20 years as a high school administrator, so I know your role as a school board. First time I'm addressing you guys, first time I'm addressing a school board. I've always sat on the other side as an administrator listening to public comment. So I think, the last 2 years you guys have had a really, really tough job, right? Listening to community members, listening to staff, and listening to kids. So I just wanted to kind of discuss one item that is kind of out there right now when it comes to your role as school board members as it relates to the Illinois School Code, okay? So the Illinois Constitution grants all school boards the wide latitude to govern, right, their school districts. However, you can govern subject to numerous state laws and federal laws. So you guys have to abide by whatever is in the Illinois Constitution when creating policies and drafting policies. So basically, that's where you guys draw your authority as school boards, is from that school code. So I've reached out a few times, and I heard back from Kathy, and I understand you guys may not be able to comment on my question today, but the response I got back was that school code gives school boards the broad authority on the issue of student health and safety that does not prohibit masking or other measures to keep students safe, including remote learning for close contacts. So my question to the school board tonight, all right, that I kind of just sit back and listen, is the question I'm posing tonight is, what federal or state statute gives the school board, this school board, the authority to, if should you decide, to reimpose mitigations such as quarantines and masks in the future? So that's just my question to you guys. I understand you guys have legal counsel and things have to run by legal counsel before you guys send out a message. So I just want to put that out there that that's a question I have, that I think a lot of parents have. I commend you guys on what happened a few weeks ago by removing masks or making masks a choice, giving kids the choice to wear masks, giving parents that choice. So I think that's education right there for you guys, giving kids and parents that choice. So in the future, I just would like to know that answer is, what statute do you guys draw your authority should you choose to reimpose those mitigations? That's it. I'm looking forward to being a very active community member here, and appreciate you guys for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment tonight, and you'll hear back from us.
And next we have Paul Kelly.
Short. It's kind of like in It's a Wonderful Life, where you got put James Stewart in the smaller chair and you guys are up in the big chair. Nice job. All right. So for those, I think you might know me, my name is Paul Kelly, 1215 Elm Street. We've been in the community 16, 17, 18 years. So just want to address three things, and Kathy, keep me to time as best as I can. One is the response to the TRO and the time it took to respond, and the board's response. Second is, we talk about respect, but I think talking about the board's respect for parents. And third is the vaccination outlook. So first of all, in terms of when the TRO was voted, or the vote came out on the TRO, I was very hopeful that this school would have implemented, like many other schools did, and implemented right away to a mask optional. So I understand your rationale, and I know you guys have talked through it and so forth, but I was still disappointed because many schools took that opportunity to implement it right away. I commend you guys for having the meeting to vote. I commend you for, even though it was remote, at least you had the vote and you guys had the discussion, you guys went on record. And I think Scott did a very good job of managing a difficult discussion over a long period of time. But again, I think the key thing, and I won't go into it, my colleague stated that the fact is that when we talk about thinking about bringing masks back, and how Dane had said that it still gives you the power to institute your own mitigation strategies, it doesn't mean you can do mitigation strategies that are illegal. And there clearly were, and I know that's being lost in the gray area, but that's very, very important. Second is, and I apologize if I'm going to go over on time. I'm really trying here. Sorry. Really trying. Okay. So during the comments, there were a couple of things that were stated that I want to call out. Mr. Corman, there were a couple of comments I want to highlight, and I'd like you to consider. You had stated during your discussion that you went to a second grade class and everything was fine, everything was happy. So then you made the conclusion that everything is fine and no other kids are suffering from this. So you said that was your conclusion based on your attendance at one meeting. You said your highest priority is to keep the schools open, and I agree with you. This school did do this. This school board did do that before. We also had there was a board member, as people know, Katie Jones, who was a very strong proponent of that. And we saw what happened with her with the re-election. She was not voted back in. So you understand that this community understands that and has that position. Sorry. I had 3 topics, I only covered 2. You referred to a number of people as armchair attorneys and armchair epidemiologists. To be honest, I want all parents in the community to be armchair epidemiologists, armchair educators, armchair philosophers, armchair psychologists, so they understand what's going on in their community and they understand what's going on in the school.
Mr. Kelly, I'll give
Yeah.
you like 30 seconds.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it. And, you know, you were very supremely confident that it was potentially going to be overturned, and the reality was it wasn't, okay? As you had stated in a couple of emails, which we have documentation on. So I won't belabor the point. I think I did want to get into some vaccination discussion, but I'll leave that to another meeting time. My first point is I got across. The second point is there are a lot of caring parents in this community. And I know you guys get a lot of email that we don't know about. Totally get it, right? But hey, that's the job. I'm sorry. But we are going to be very active parents, and we are entitled to, and we should be, understanding all the details of the legal aspects, of the epidemiology, of the medical profession, of everything, so that we can be the best parents in the best community. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. Kathy, do we have any other comments? No more comments right now. We will have a second comment period if anyone wants. Next, we'll move along to Section E, consideration of resolutions. This is our consent agenda. We've already talked about these before. I'm going to read the resolutions, and then I'm going to ask for a motion and a second. So I have number 1, 22017, the personnel report. Number 2, 22018, the payroll warrants report. Number 3, 22019, vendor warrants. And number 4, 22020, staffing allocations for 2022 and 2023. Do I have a motion and a second for approval?
So move, Heggie.
Second.
Diane. And may we have a roll call vote for that?
Dolan,
Aye.
Heggie,
Aye.
Corman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Jack Torowitz,
Aye.
Baumstark,
Aye.
Stefani.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Nelson, could I please say a few words?
Sure. Can you say your name so?
Yes,
YouTube people-
Kevin Dorkin, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, and we'd like to welcome this evening on the personnel report you just approved, the new ATIA principal, Diana O'Donnell. Diana's in the audience. As of July 1 in the 22-23 school year, Ms. O'Donnell will become the ATIA principal. She comes to us from District 59, where she currently serves as the principal of Rupley Elementary in Elk Grove. Diana brings 11 years of administrative experience, having also served as a principal in Buffalo Grove, middle school assistant principal in Wheeling, and she has extensive middle school teaching experience as well. And we've enjoyed getting to know her to this point and learning about her passion for instructional leadership, professional development, and creating inclusive learning environments to meet the needs of all students. So please join me in welcoming her to District 34. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we'll move along to Section F, consideration of other resolutions. And we're going to start with number 1, 22021, which is the approval of a resolution awarding and assigning trade contracts for 2022 referendum work, additions, remodeling work, and at multiple sites. We're going to have some discussion on this.
Yep, and maybe we could start with the folks from Nicholas just running us through an update on how the latest bids went first.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Board. Nick Papanicholas Jr., I'm president of Nicholas and Associates. It's great to see everyone. It's been a few meetings since I've been here. So before Dave gets into the details of the bid results, I just wanted to frame a little bit about what's currently going on in the construction industry, not just locally, but nationally across all markets. So these are some high-level bullet points of some key indicators of material costs. So number one, on average, we've experienced just shy of 30% increases since March of 2020. When you break that down into a little bit more detail, steel is up 111%, copper up 67%, plastics are up 34%, wood is substantially up. When you break down towards the bottom of this slide, Q1 of 2020, $405 per 1,000 board feet was the current unit price index. That jumped up to $1,050 year over year, and now is jumped up to $1,300 a 1,000 board foot in 2 years. So unprecedented increases. You might say to yourself, well, how does lumber necessarily affect school construction costs? There's a lot of lumber materials in a school. You could take plastic laminate casework, you could take countertop material, you could take in-wall blocking, you could take roof blocking. All of that, when you break it down, is a building component, and those have substantial impacts. CPI, everyone follows CPI that's probably in this room, and it's historically at its high since the early 80s. So, we just wanted to take a few moments to throw out some key data points as we work into, as Dave presents, the bid results and some of our recommendations moving forward. So, thank you.
Thanks, Nick. All right, before I actually dive into the numbers here, just a few brief moments just to bring you all up to speed so we can review the bidding structure. And the project was separated into 2 phases, which we grouped into 4 individual base bids. Base bid number 1 included 2 phases of work at the primaries, that's Hanking, Lyon, and Westbrook. The scope consisted of classroom renovations, toilet room remodeling, sprinkler work, and mechanical improvements. Base bid number 2 included 2 phases of work at the intermediates, that's Glengrove, Hoffman, and Pleasant Ridge. Same scope of work, classroom renovations, toilet room remodeling, sprinkler work, and mechanical improvements. Base bid 3 included 2 phases of work at ATIA, and the renovation work was focused on the science classrooms along with some mechanical improvements. And then finally, base bid number 4 included just a single phase of work at Springman for 2022, which included work for a main office renovation, new stair tower addition, and south wing classroom remodeling. The district hosted 4 separate bid openings. Each base bid had its own bid opening day, with the first being held on February 16th, and the final bid opening was on February 25th. All of this work totaled just shy of $63 million in construction costs. This is approximately $23.5 million over our original referendum budget. Our teams have met internally and at length to discuss the options and the next steps. Our recommendation at this time is to proceed with base bids 1 and 4 only, while we look to rebid all or portions of base bids 2 and 3 with the goal of bringing costs down. There were, as you can see, several alternates or deductive alternates that were issued throughout the bid phase. However, during the scope review process, we determined that much of what was bid was an inaccurate representation of what the value should have been. We are therefore only recommending a couple of alternates here, one being for the reduced door scope, and then alternate 8 is for the deletion of corridor tack boards, of which we believe were bid correctly. Those are the only 2 alternates that we would recommend be accepted at this time, while the remaining alternates would be issued as deductive RFPs post-award. And the benefit of doing that is it gives us an opportunity to work with contractors individually to make sure that as they're looking through these deductive RFPs that they're actually analyzing the scope correctly. Some of the driving factors for our recommendation in terms of moving forward with base bid 1 and 4 include first and foremost just to reduce the overall budget overage. The second part of it is that there are scope items included in this second phase of construction that have a direct impact on the phase 1. So specifically, you know, we've got these additions that all tie into existing buildings, so there's above ceiling work and tie-in work, of which there's work scheduled in phase 2 that has a direct overlap with those contractors. So there is a coordination effort there that needs to be made. Separate from the deductive RFP, our team plans to reduce scope for base bids 1 and 4 and to reduce contract amounts through the following steps. By reducing the allowance and removing any subcontractor bond premiums, working collectively with the contractors and the design team to find additional savings through value engineering, and then finally entering into contract negotiations with the contractors, utilizing our own personal relationships with them to help continue to bring that cost down even more. Before we move on to the next slide, I just want to outline some of the schedule impacts as it relates to implementing these changes. Regarding base bids 2 and 3, which, as you may recall, includes the work at the intermediates and ATIA, we did mention that we plan to rebid all or a portion of those bid packages in the late summer of 2022 for all work now to be completed in the summer of 2023. This puts us at the front of the line for contractors bidding the 2023 work, which sets us up for very competitive bidding as contractors look to fill their backlog for 2023. It also buys our team some additional time to continue a deep dive into the schedule of values and all the information that the contractors have provided to us so that we can analyze anything and everything to find cost-saving options and get them implemented in time for a rebid for the summer. Obviously, the goal of a rebid is to lower the numbers across the board. That said, as we do these deep dive scope reviews with contractors, if we find that there are certain bid packages within these individual base bids that are unlikely to improve, we would plan to bring those to the board for approval at a later date with an understanding, again, that all work for base bids 2 and 3 would then be completed in 2023. So this is just kind of an overview of the schedule. So we are currently still working on completion for phase 1, and as we move into June of 22 through August, we'll look to complete all of phase 1, which includes some of that overlap in scope that I mentioned earlier, as we work to tie in these additions, as well as completing any of the building links, and then we'd be looking to complete phase 2 renovation, which is 50% of half of the existing buildings at Hanking, Lyon, Springman, and Westbrook only. In late summer, July or August, we would push for a rebid of base bids 2 and 3 for work to take place in the summer of 2023, and then moving further down the road for June of 23, we would be looking to complete what would be potentially approved tonight for phase 3 at the primaries, and then complete the work, 100% of it, at the intermediates and ATIA. This last slide, really just our focus on these 4 bullet points, and we didn't talk a lot about phase 1, but we've been providing some updates along the way. Still maintaining a lot of positive momentum with phase 1. We continue to operate on or ahead of schedule, which is great, as well as staying under budget. With regards to base bids 1 and 4, again, pending approval tonight, we'll really need to hit the ground running as we prepare for construction of phase 2, with each site specific in respect to getting submittals in, material procurement, and as well as the on-site coordination. And then the continued development of the cost-saving options, which would then be implemented as part of the rebid in base bid 2 and 3, and then ultimately, as we look to future phases, working collectively to find ways to reduce and refine the scope. It goes without saying, but between the pandemic and the war, and the unprecedented supply chain challenges, and the continued market volatility, we are facing an uphill battle from here on out. And while these bid results are extremely disappointing for us, we are fully committed to working collectively with the district and the design team to find creative solutions and make every effort to bring costs down for phase 2 and 3, while also looking to reevaluate future design scopes to help us recover from this budget overage. And I'm sure you have questions, so we'll open it up.
All right, does anyone have any questions to start? Diane?
I do. So you had talked about the option of rebidding. Is there any chance in doing that it could actually end up going up and that we have no good options at that point?
That is always a possibility, and a lot of what we're working on right now with contractors is determining, which bid packages specifically we feel like there may have been certain premiums carried for a number of different factors, but by changing the timeline and the scope and looking at a 2023 only, we're counting on the fact that contractors for 2022 and 2023, they're going to be looking to fill their backlog for 2023, so that should really facilitate some competitive bidding.
Could you talk a little bit more about the front of the line? You mentioned that very briefly, but I think the board would appreciate understanding what that means
I agree.
specifically.
Those of us that aren't construction.
Yeah, I'll take that. So as general comment here, contractors look to procure all their backlog for the following year, really ASAP. So, when you look at specific to public K-12 procurement, most of that work is procured from Thanksgiving to call it April 1 at the absolute latest. So if, bid packages get put on the street, we receive bids in maybe late July or late August in 2022, we would be first in line, from any local contractor, procurement to lock down work for that following summer. So the closer to the starting point that contractors get to starting the work, the higher the costs. So as Dave opened, I think we were looking at just shy of $63 million between base bid, 1, 2, 3, and 4, or I'm sorry, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4, is that, we're sitting here in March looking to take action on 4 substantial projects, of which a decent amount of work was going to happen in summer 2022, but also a decent amount of work was happening in summer 2023. So what we're seeing is contractors are saying, we are so full right now with 2022 work that if we do bid this project and if we were awarded this project, that the margins we're going in at are much higher than they would be if they were bidding the work, call it in July or August for the following year. Because as you start right now, or as you look at it right now, they probably have 0 backlog for that following summer.
And is there anything about the way that this plan is currently laid out that should we decide that when we get to the last phases that we want to forego some items, perhaps would we still have that option the way this is unfolding?
For future phases?
Well, you have all the phases. If we get to the end phases and we decide, well, you know what, this has gone so over at this point, we want to cut some things out, will we still have that option?
Well, we always have the option of looking at the future phases, and that's part of our ongoing discussion.
Okay.
To try and manage, the overage that we're looking at right
Right.
now. It's absolutely forcing us to have those conversations, right now,
Okay.
because it's a real thing.
Thank you.
So do I have that right in saying, the idea of delaying this, and I know you don't want to do that, nobody does, but, but the idea of pushing this back a year and rebidding it is, truly, we might lose out on material costs because if they continue to rise, but we're going to offset that by potential savings by being first in line. When contractors, they need to keep their machines busy, they need to keep their people busy, so they're going to, look for more of the mashed potatoes than the gravy at that point. So, we're either going to be better, no worse off, or, we might be a little worse off. So, odds are at least 2/3 that it's going to be no worse. Is that right?
Absolutely, and, we sit here, we've done such a deep dive into these schedule of values to get an understanding of what contractors were bidding. We've internally exhausted this discussion to say, if we do postpone 2 and 3, we have to be 110% confident we're gonna bring this back lower. And so, to Dave's point, what's come out during some of these deep dives is some of the bid packages within the base bids themselves actually are very competitively priced, and those are the ones we might extract out and look to take action on in April, so to lock that number down and not to have it go the other way, because we are afraid of that. As far as the ones that we will be looking for the board to reject, those are the ones that we know confidently that, being first in line, the margins that contractors will be bidding at will be lower. That alone, will help the cause. And, I'll talk a little bit about wood. So it depends on when you purchased and you struck on like a lumber purchase. Because what happened was in March of, March of 2021, wood was up at that 1,050 per board foot. And it substantially dropped 6 months after that, and then it substantially rose again. So I think one of the responsibilities as us as a construction manager to the district are to be in tune with, the commodity indexing of material costs. And so if, as we observe these things, because we get reports every Monday from a lot of supply houses. And so when we see trends on the downward shift, it's going to be, our job to be in a position to put things out to bid so we could capitalize on that downtrend. So it's something that we've talked about. It's always, Dave does it like probably when I could say 110% confident, but I know we're going to do everything in our power and we'll make it happen.
I mean, I do want to make a comment that almost all the commodity markets are in backwardization right now, where the front month products are so much more. Even a year or two out, lumber is probably half the price of what it is in the futures market.
Correct.
So, just giving ourselves some more time here may help us realize some cheapness also. James, you had something?
Yeah, just a quick refresher if we could. How come we weren't out in front of the 22 and 23 while going through this last year? And why are we kind of having the conversation to be out in front of 23 only?
So I don't want to put words.
That's
in-
probably more for the design team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so just how are we having a front of the line conversation for 23 as opposed to having a front of the line conversation 6 months ago or 9 months ago for 22 and 23, perhaps, last summer?
Sure. So it's important to consider that the package that went out for bid was 8 buildings, 2 years worth of work. So it's a substantial package of work. So we started work on this package in June of last year. Okay. So we finished phase 1 and put that out to bid in February and March of last year, retooled and began working on completing design development for phase 2 and phase 3 between March and June, and started construction documents in June and have been working on it since. So it is a substantial amount of work. So the idea of going out in July would not have been possible. The only thing that we could have done was skip next year entirely, skip 22 entirely, and move on.
Yeah, let me add something real quick. So you were kind of comparing that phase 1 package to phase 2 and 3, right? Why didn't we? Well, the phase 1 bid packages came in well below the number initially, and then we started, as Troy said, the design process for phase 2 and 3, and then in September of last year, we actually pulled up and re-estimated. The full package was re-estimated, we recalibrated for that very reason. And the markets were saying that we were still in line or a little bit over. We adjusted our scope, retooled all of our bid documents that then continued to go out to bid. So we actually did have a back check back in September of last year to retool that and make adjustments, which we did at that point. So it's a process.
Anybody else?
I know Mike does, but I do too.
Mike's turn.
So, a couple things. I would just say broadly. I had a long conversation, Mr. Heggie and I had a long conversation with the contractors and the design team last Thursday.
Can I just say you guys are the construction subcommittee. Thank you for all the extra work that you guys have been putting in.
And it was a very good conversation, a very frank conversation, looking to protect the interests of our taxpayers and the buildings and everything else. One of the things that I just want to respond to James on was, we built this program based on 2018, 2019, and 2020 planning. And it was best efforts at that point. And even though I was here hounding everybody about inflation, I was off by a factor of 4. I was thinking 5, 10%, 15%, not what we're seeing. I think I give a lot of credit to the team here that has tried to adjust on the fly. I've let some of my frustrations be known to them, as John is aware. But we unfortunately, construction in the last 200 years hasn't really changed very much. You got to design it on a routine. You got to get it through the code checks. You got to get it through the village and community. And then you got to build it. And we still build things basically the same way we have for the last 150 years, sadly, in many ways. So unfortunately, the days are the days, and we, frankly, short of the design team throwing 2 or 3 times the amount of labor at the project at a premium on that end, where do you want to put the premium is really the question. And it's really a challenge for sure. But I just wanted the board to know that John and I did a lot of due diligence with the design team and the construction team over these last couple of weeks. And I plan to go visit the sites on Wednesday of this week with Mr. Ruelli as well. So I do want to give them a lot of credit for the hard work they've done. This isn't fun or easy for anyone. The good news in any of this, we are so far ahead of every other school district that's just starting now because they just passed bond work. We are actually, it may be hard to believe, we're actually in a fortunate position to be able to get this work done. Certainly the kindergarten work done this year.
Natalie?
I don't really have a question, just a comment. One, wish we'd had a crystal ball a year ago and bought a lot of supplies, but then we would have had to warehouse them. But nobody could have foreseen this, but honestly, this just seems like the most sensible way to go with the circumstances that we have. So that's all I have to say.
And just a quick question here. Have you quantified what you think the benefit of waiting might be? I mean, we know it could be better, but do you have like a number in mind? Like, I know it's, I can't predict, but a range, or is it like?
I could share everybody with all the chicken scratch, but no.
Or like, I know there's a probability distribution around it, but like.
Just say 20 million. No.
So,
25.
I'll give a high level of what we're targeting, base bid 1, 2, 3, and 4, with all of the process that we're implementing with value engineering, contractor negotiations, contingency allowance reductions, bond elimination. We're targeting about a $7.5 million reduction, top to bottom, off of the 62-ish, $63 million worth of bids. So and I could confidently sit here tonight, and say we will be close to achieving that. The exact number, I can't tell you that, but $7.5 million-ish is what we're targeting.
And is that driven primarily by the capacity relief, or is there some bet that the commodity prices are also going to come down, or like what creates the $7.5 million?
So number one, within bid packages, it's common and it's best practices to carry contingency allowance, and that's a percentage of the total construction costs that is going to be embarked on. So the risk on reducing that is really the risk on us as construction managers and these guys as designers, that we've done a professional job creating these bid packages, that there's no gaps in the scope, that we have a problem that something was missed, that the drawings, the engineering is clear to all the bidders, that we're not gonna run into major obstacles. And so, you know, it's, again, common practice. This isn't the first project we've done this on. You reduce the allowances and you roll up your sleeves and you become uber fiscally responsible to bring this on. Not that we aren't from the beginning, but, you know, there's just, again, best practices and percentages. So we tighten the belt there. The performance bond thing, that's something that we, as the construction manager at risk for the district, provide a performance bond over the top of the entire amount that the Board of Ed, you know, approves. So that, you know, guarantees performance of the project as well as payment for the project. So, you know, when Eric and his office release a check to us, if we don't, you know, make a payment, that our bond for the entire amount is intact, you know, protecting the district. So we eliminate that at the subcontractor level, because that subcontractor level, the only protection is to Nicholas, not necessarily to the district, because we've already bonded the full amount. So you all already have that protection. So we eliminate that. And then with the contract negotiations, we try to tighten up the margins. So, you know, part of the schedule of values review is we're seeing numbers in double digits. And, you know, what we would typically see for a bid package, we might see 3 to 5% or maybe 5 to 7%. We're seeing 10 to 12% and 12 to 15% type profit margins. So being that we do hundreds of millions of dollars of work with all of these contractors, because believe it or not, the public school arena in construction is a pretty limited group, because people need to understand on how to work on, you know, occupied facilities, and kids and programs are first. So the pool is pretty small that goes after this work. So we're in good faith negotiating with all these contractors, pretty much saying that, listen, we have your back. We're not looking to put you into a jungle and to try to complete a project in a timeline that's unrealistic. Is that, you know, in good faith to District 34, because they're a great client, and, you know, we you know, we're protective of that relationship. We need you to tighten things up. And is it normal to do this? No. But are people willing to? Yes, because they want to maintain the relationship. And this is great work. They want to be associated with it. So we're seeing the margins get tightened up that way. So it isn't like one specific thing. It's kind of, you know, a culmination of it all, and we're getting towards it. So that's why I could sit here tonight and feel confident about that $7.5 million number.
Thank you. I just want to bring it up. We as a board, we've been very diligent for the community around here. When we issued our debt, we probably got some of the lowest rates you're going to see in 30 or 40 years. Eric, can I confidently say it was somewhat in the savings of $20 to $30 million for the taxpayer? Yeah. So, you know, from the original promise that we told people, we're saving the community over the 20-year period, approximately $20 to $30 million. So we're very fiscally conservative there. We were cognitive of, you know, possible inflationary things. Nothing that we have seen, this is unprecedented, as you said. 8% it's kind of crazy. So, you know, we're doing our best to manage this project and keep it keep it under budget or at budget as we go forward. So I think this extra time frame may give us some time to find maybe even alternate revenue from the federal level. We'll see as we go forward. But, you know, we're going to continue to look for ways to manage this project, all of us as a team. Is that what I'm hearing from everyone?
That's correct. Yes.
All right. Is there can we possibly get a motion and a second to approve this resolution?
I will move to approve the resolution as written. Mike Corman.
Second, Heggie.
May I get a roll call vote?
Heggie.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Corman.
Aye.
Jack Torowitz.
Aye.
Baumstark.
Aye.
Dolan.
Aye.
Stefani.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you guys for the update.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move to number 22-022, the updated mitigation plan. And it's an anagram, too.
Hello, so I will set this up just a little bit, and Kathy, I believe you'll have some information to share as well on this topic, but our updated mitigation plan does return this evening for your formal approval after the direction provided by the board on February 15th. And our updated mitigations went into effect just by way of review on February 28th. And since that time, I can report that the transitions really overall have gone quite smoothly. Depending on the school building that you happen to be in, one would find varying levels of mask wearing in place. So we definitely have staff members and students who continue to wear masks, which is perfectly fine. We have other children and family members who have exercised their option to either not wear a mask or maybe wear a mask at some points of the day and not others. So it really looks different kind of depending on where you are. There were other mitigations, of course, that were impacted by our decision to go mask optional, and we have communicated that, I believe, well to the community, and we'll review that quickly before you approve the plan. We've also been very deliberate about honoring the choices that people have made. We had specific lessons that were developed, and we really focused on some of the culture and climate underpinnings of our school buildings as we went about that work. I should also note that our pandemic preparedness as a school district remains very important, not only now, but as we move forward. And I think it would be naive to think that a society, in particular a school district, moving forward would never be impacted again by something similar. And so I think our preparedness as a school district in terms of health and safety and other educational practices remains important, and we will continue to be doing work and consulting with health professionals moving forward as we continue to plan. I should also just note too that IDPH, at least for the time being, has been rather quiet on issuing any updated guidance or pathways moving forward. We are told that that is still forthcoming, but as time has proven, it could be a little while longer. So with that setup, Kathy, I know you may have a few things in particular you'd like to share, or not?
Right. Actually, I will share. So, as Dane said, all of this has been communicated to the community and to yourselves. So our goal always remains the same. At this point, we will always continue to monitor and adjust mitigations when necessary. I'm only going to highlight, because you know these, things that may have changed since your last board meeting. Positive individuals can return on day 6. They would remain masked. Masks are recommended in our buildings and on our buses. They are not required. They are only required in our healthcare settings, such as the nurse's office, our infirmaries. We continue with the shield testing, and the masks are required when students return on day 6 until day 10. We are remaining with our 3 feet distancing when possible and 6 feet distancing at lunchtime for grades 1 through 5. Other items to point out is one of the changes in symptomatic individuals. Now they can provide a negative test to return to school, and we will accept lab-based rapid antigen tests, or in school Bionex now is now accepted. Another very positive change is that our volunteers are now welcome back again in our buildings, which we're very happy for. Other than that, things remain the same in terms of mitigations. This is a beautiful chart that Kathy put together, which is a very nice summary of our key mitigations.
All right, so for the remote learning medical need process, it remains the same. We do indeed have, since the beginning of the year, children in our remote learning experience. It is indeed still provided by our qualified educational service, the same that we spoke of last summer into the school year. The assistant principal for student services are indeed monitoring the progress for our children and also providing the SEL support. And as Dr. Deli mentioned, these really beautiful posters, the spirit, the energy, the collaboration between staff to ensure that children, all of our children, are feeling comfortable, and this notion that we're pointing this out, we're making it clear, mask, unmask, but the bottom line, as Mr. Nelson pointed out at the beginning of the meeting, is all of our children belong here in the district, and so we wanted to make it clear with these beautiful posters throughout the district.
And as Dr. Deli said, we are awaiting IDPH guidance and ISBE guidance, if there is any forthcoming, that may impact our mitigation plan. And once released, we'll review it and make any changes as necessary. But the district does maintain the authority to implement mitigations to protect the health and safety of our students and staff and continue meeting our goal of keeping kids in person in school for as much as possible.
Can I make a comment?
Any questions?
Yeah, I just have a comment. I really love the posters. Like, kudos to you guys. I think that's wonderful. It, I think, really reflects our district and who we are and who we strive to be. And I'm just curious, when did those get put up?
We got those up Friday before the 28th. So
Okay.
we went mask recommended on the 28th. Those were in the buildings when kids and staff came in on the 28th. And the student services team did a great job of having lessons ready for staff so that, you know, any conversations that came up in classrooms, Mary and Kristen and their team just did a great job of implementing those. So it was kind of really cohesive, and we appreciate the board giving us that time to make that transition as smooth as possible.
Well, thank you. Kudos to all of you. Well done.
Thanks. I just want to mention that, as Dr. Deli also said, that it's important to stay prepared going forward because the pandemic is not over. So I'm assuming continuing work will go on ways that we can continue to teach our students in person safe as possible. I know we've spoke with Dr. Dolan about possibly working with Dr. Deli on that going forward.
And if I could just make a comment too, I've been monitoring obviously the communication since February 28th, and just as a reminder, perhaps we want to send out just what are the COVID symptoms, because they're going to be very, we'll call it ambiguous and overlapping with seasonal allergy, the circulating gastroenteritis that seems to be afflicting a lot of people now, and even just kind of the common cold. So, you know, it's not just fever, it's not loss of taste and smell, it's, you know, headache, loss of energy, diarrhea, vomiting. All of those are still overlapping symptoms of COVID that could be within our mitigation plan to require a test. So just a reminder that it's not kind of the same set of symptoms that we've maybe become accustomed to as adults, and that's comprehensive within the mitigation plan.
We'll definitely get out those reminders.
Thanks. Does anybody have anything else with the mitigation plan?
Yeah, you know, I do, Scott.
Sure.
It seems like a lot of time, you know, I guess I would just preface this by saying, you know, two things that we know to be facts. And, you know, one is that we are awaiting guidance, and it's not here, and we've been awaiting guidance for a while, and it's still not here, and so, you know, hopefully it's forthcoming. And secondly, I've never known this administration to be reckless in anything that they do. But I can't help but notice that a lot of that mitigation plan, we're seeing a lot of recommendations, which were at one point recommendations, are now requirements. And, I know that the point was brought up by a couple commenters tonight that, I'm not sure we have the authority for some of those things that we are calling requirements, like even requiring testing based on a self-reported symptom. So I hope we've got that well researched and that we can point to that.
Yeah.
In terms of symptomatic students, it's similar to prior to COVID pandemic in terms of when we would send children home to when we wouldn't send children home.
Yeah, but, we've had a huge change in the law since
Right.
earlier. We don't have an executive order in place at all. And I know people have said it was overturned. It wasn't, but it's not in place. I mean, I'm just saying, we should be able to and be prepared to point to where we think we have that authority to require some of these things, because I'm just not sure we are.
I think
or we have it.
Yeah, and
There's entire legal briefs that kind of show different sides of that. So, I mean, I think that, there's a lot to be considered there.
This case is still being appealed to the Supreme Court. Am I correct on that matter?
It was sent back to
The original,
trial
and it
court.
hasn't been ruled on yet, again, right?
Yeah, I'm sure mootness will
Yeah.
play.
But also, it was sort of made clear that districts can come up with their own, have now
Local
self-rule
authority.
about that.
Yes.
Right.
So I think what you're saying is open a little.
Well, the
to-
idea is make sure that our attorneys give us an opinion on our authority to do this.
Absolutely.
That's what John's alluding to. Am I correct, John?
That's more than
yeah, the current understanding is that we have the authority with respect to what we've outlined here. We also have other board policy and procedure that speaks to, children who have a contagious disease and things of that nature. So we haven't relinquished any of that authority. That's not to say that something couldn't be challenged, of course, but I certainly appreciate the point about bringing as much clarity to this through guidance and other sources as possible and as soon as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Elliott. I do also want to point out to the community that we're still doing, I believe, 2,000 shield tests a week.
Yeah, haven't looked lately how many.
Yeah.
But probably, yes.
Just over,
Yeah.
that's just under half of our student population, right?
And I think it's worth bringing up and discussing the shield testing as well, is that, that's a completely voluntary basis that people put their children in. So for those people who are, who don't want to see that happening, you have the option to not put your child in it. And there's an awful lot of people who want to see that happening, and that's why we're having 2,000 tests.
Yeah.
And we've layered that with the Ravinia test also, so if they are still willing to, they can have a test at any point. It is choice.
So anyone can still get a test in our district.
It's choice,
Great.
yep.
Thanks. Any other discussion before I ask? Mike?
I just want to say, isn't it great that we only had 3 cases today? I love seeing those single-digit numbers across thousands of students and almost 10,000 family members in District 34. So well done us to get this thing relatively under control. We're not through the woods yet, but I love seeing single-digit numbers in our district. It really feels like good news, very good news for our kids.
We're in a good place.
So yeah, we watch this like a hawk, every one of us. We see this every day. So, all right. So can I ask for a motion and a second for the 2022-022 updated mitigation plan?
So moved.
Natalie
Second, Baumstark.
Baumstark. And may I have a roll call vote?
Stefani.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Corman.
Aye.
Jack Torowitz.
Aye.
Baumstark.
Aye.
Dolan.
Aye.
Heggie.
Nay.
Okay, the motion carries 6-1. May we move now to 22-023 ESSER update?
Yes, so we have really a quick overview to provide, mainly because since our original planning that we shared in fiscal year 2021, and we can move to that slide. So this is sort of the highest level general overview of the rollout of our ESSER money, and then the categories or the areas of expenditure and focus, going back to the CARES Act and then all the different names of the acts that were passed to provide the funding. I also just want to clarify and reinforce that masking policies or masking of children is unrelated to this funding. When we talk about PPE expenditures, it's for staff and it's for cleaning and those types of different activities. So this brings us up to fiscal year 2022 through 2024. And again, you can see the highlighted categories. They still remain in effect. One of the most significant being our instructional learning labs, our after-school support for children. We started this year and planning on subsequent years for that programming. And really that was the plan and continues to be the plan. And with that, we'll move on to some new funding provided by IDEA.
Yes, we just found out within the last month that they did allot additional dollars in the Individuals with Disabilities grant through the American Rescue Plan. The IDEA K through 12, as you can see that amount there, $242,000. And the decision that we made after staffing was that we were going to add 2 one-year position MTSS specialists with the learning behavior specialist endorsement for each of our middle schools. So they had an additional allocation on your staffing for each of the middle schools that can be a more blended approach. They need to have that special ed endorsement, but they'll be able to address more global needs under this position. We have definitely seen an increase in mental health needs, social emotional needs, and so as well as, academic needs in some cases. So we are going to allot that money to support our middle schools for each of the middle schools for one more position, as well as whatever dollars, we don't know those exact salaries and benefits yet, but once we do, we'll see what dollars are available, and we'll be able to purchase intervention supplies and materials. And then in our IDEA pre-K, we were allotted another $24,000. And in working with the administration here at Westbrook, they would like to use that money for supplies and materials for our pre-K. So that was good news.
And that's what we have to share tonight.
Oh.
Thank you.
All right, is there any questions? Mike?
So really, I think more a comment and a question. So the comment is, I feel very confident in stating that every public school district in America received ESSER funds without regard to the policies that they put into place regarding mitigation strategies. So for those in the community that have accused us of only taking ESSER funds for this or that reason, I just want to point out that that is factually incorrect. The second point I'd like to make, and maybe this is more direct to Mr. Miller, is the board, has been accused in many, many messages, many emails, many letters of somehow benefiting personally from ESSER funds. My wife would love to know how much I get paid for this role. She knows it's zero. But we should do everything that we can to be as absolutely transparent as possible with where these funds went as much as possible. And I appreciate the numbers that were up on the previous slide. But we have a duty to the community to show the community that we are good stewards for the funds that we are allocated by the federal, state, and local governments. And this has been a particular pain point for all of us for the last year and a half that I would like to see us take a little more aggressive response to for those people that ask for that information through FOIA or other ways, or maybe we just post it on our website so it's available for everyone. I'd like to be ahead of other school districts in doing this to the extent that we can be. Thank you.
Thanks for your input, Mike. Any other comments or questions? All right, may I ask for a motion and a second for the 22023 ESSER update?
Well, actually, I do have a
Okay.
What is it that we are approving here? Like,
The plan for 22 through
I mean,
24, is
we're
that it?
approving how the money's getting spent? Are we approving the application to get it? Like,
Yeah, it's written in the grant-making rules to update the board. And if, it's kind of strange, if changes were to take place, you're supposed to provide that information. But then there's finer print that states that you still need to do an update. So that's what we're doing here to make sure we're following the guidelines. We were probably being overly cautious, but we wanted to take this step and the board approval.
So by providing the update, it almost triggers another vote, is what happens. They tell us we have to update, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
So then when you give the update, you're triggering another vote for what we've already said we were going to do.
Yes, and it could fall into.
Sounds like federal guidelines to me.
Yeah, exactly, yes. Yes.
well, what is the actual resolution? Can you read it before we vote it?
Yeah, it's always.
It always does.
Just so I know
I
what
think
we're voting
it's,
on.
that's what it is, 22-023,
Right.
ESER update.
ESER update.
That's what it is,
No, we approved the
agreed to
update.
update That we
of
approved the update.
administration
We approved the
as
update.
conducted.
as,
That we previously.
as presented, that we've previously approved.
We did in fact see it. It was on the screen.
There.
Sorry, Jim, it's,
Well, no, I can understand an acknowledgement vote that we received an update. Is that,
Yeah.
is that
Right.
what we're doing?
That's
Okay.
basically
That's
it.
a good question. Yeah.
I think we're showing the
Sure.
government that we received an update, yeah.
Okay.
By voting.
That's what we're voting.
That we
It's
received
It's
an update.
checking a box, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know.
That's good, good question.
Good question.
It is.
Always good.
Process and procedure.
Okay.
Is there a motion and a second then?
I will so move. Corman.
I'll second Jack Torowitz.
May we have a roll call vote?
Baumstark.
Aye.
Dolan.
Aye.
Stefani.
Aye.
Jack Torowitz.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Heggie.
Aye.
Corman.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we'll move on to number 4, 22024, reduction in force. This is a resolution authorizing the honorable dismissal of teachers. This resolution will honorably dismiss the following teachers from employment in the district at the end of the current school year for reduction in force reasons. They are Hillary Anderson and Jennifer Sanderson. Is there any discussion on this item?
Thank you for their service.
Yes. I need a motion and a second to approve the resolution for the honorable dismissal of teachers as presented.
So moved, Heggie.
Seconded, Corman.
And a roll call vote, please.
Heggie.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Corman.
Aye.
Jack Torowitz.
Aye.
Baumstark.
Aye.
Dolan.
Aye.
Stefani.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we move to number 5, 22025, resolutions for non-renewal of probationary teachers and part-time teachers. These are the resolutions authorizing the non-reemployment of probationary teachers and part-time teachers. The following teachers will be released as probationary teachers, not final year, at the end of 2021-2022 school term. Matthew Baker, Javi Macadon, Catherine Porter, Morgan Richmond, Ed Samuelian, Ellen Schmitz, Kelly Siebold, Ashley Stanley, Saul Castaneda, Nick Hansen, Lauren Loby. The following teachers will be released as part-time teachers at the end of the 2021-2022 school term. Laura Lane and Caitlin Schomburger. I need a motion and a second to approve the resolutions for the honorable dismissal of teachers as presented.
So moved. Baumstark.
Do we have a second?
Seconded, Corman.
May I have a roll call vote?
Dolan.
Aye.
Heggie.
Aye.
Corman.
Aye.
Jack Torowitz.
Aye.
Baumstark.
Aye.
Stefani.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye. The motion carries. The board would like to thank all of the staff members listed for their service to the students of District 34. Thank you. Now we'll move on to our discussion section. We'll start with our transportation contract amendment from Alltown.
Yeah, so we've negotiated another one-year extension on behalf of the board. We're now at the point where we can only update or extend the contract by 1 year. In looking at other districts that have a three-tier system, we're a couple percentage points below them. This renewal also is a couple percentage points below what we're seeing as a renewal number, more in line with about 10%. So we estimate that our costs will go up about 5.8% based on our estimation for next year. We feel like Alltown's doing a good job, and it's worth keeping the relationship going for one more year.
Any questions from the board here?
I mean, it seems in light of well, I know there's an escalator for fuel escalation, but it just seems that's a good price in general, just based on the current labor markets and whatever, like 5-ish% sounds like a deal.
I think we should feel good about it. There is a fuel escalator in there, and we know fuel is going up, and we estimate that depending on how far it goes up, it could cost the district some decent money, depending on how long that keeps up for. But I think it's sort of prudent to go in on that burden with Alltown.
All right, can I ask, we're just discussing this, yeah.
Yeah, Eric, I do want to point out that, we had a labor shortage before it was cool with bus drivers. So going back, 5 years, and we approved a lot of payments to Alltown in the contract to make under the conditions that those monies went to their drivers to keep them there. And I got to say, I'm pretty impressed that Alltown's been able to staff the way they have. And I guess I just want to maybe at the contract take a look at, are they still one of the higher paying jobs out there of the other bus services? And if not, do we need to look at that as well? Because it seems to have worked, putting that extra money in there for the drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard a lot of horror stories at the beginning of the year. People had kept the money themselves and didn't pay off, and they didn't have buses at the start of the year. City of Chicago was a nightmare.
And last year was that 3.5%, sort of an acknowledgement of that. Yeah. Thank you.
So this is just a discussion item? We aren't voting on that?
Correct. Next month we'll ask the board for approval.
It'll be on a consent agenda?
Yes, please.
One quick question. As we continue to look forward, not say on a 1 year, but more on a 3 to 5 year time frame, have we entered discussion yet with regards to electric vehicle or some sort of hybrid bus to offset any fuel interactions? There's definitely some federal dollars looking at EV grid enhancements as well, and are any of our potential future bidders exploring that as an option that we might want to bring forward to Alltown as a consideration?
They have expressed that it's not in their interest at this time. It's a capital issue. I mean, I've been a part of some of these deals in other school districts where there's a capital investment from typically a high school district who wants to, put frankly just millions and millions of dollars into a fleet. And then what you can do is bid out the drivers and the management. But Alltown's not interested in that at this time. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the first part of your question about multi-year.
Just looking ahead 3 to 5 years, there's going to be a lot of infrastructure investments nationally with regards to fleet turnover and EV investments, especially with a lot of the federal dollars that have been going into that, and from last year's legislation, and we can anticipate that going forward. Just I think this is a great kind of 1 year starting point. But to what extent are we looking out over the horizon as opposed to continuing with 1 year negotiation and contract extensions with Alltown because we just look to be at a good spot based on where we were before?
It's fair, and we can definitely start taking a look further out. I do think it would mean parting ways with Alltown, but it's something we can look at and discuss and evaluate.
I'm not saying to part, but I'm just, as a measure of understanding the landscape, we know what we have with Alltown, but there's also, the broader choice set and saying this is still our best option as opposed to looking at just kind of a fuel and or a one year extension relative to a 3-tier contract or 3-tier kind of other school districts with 3-tier setups. That's all.
Got it.
All right, something to keep on the front burner as we move forward since this is just a 1 year. Thanks, Eric. Any other discussion? All right, let's move on to number 2 section of discussion. D34 and Glenview Park District Summer Camp.
Yeah, so this is a wonderful new opportunity. I want to start by giving tremendous kudos and appreciation to Raquel Kim, who has joined us. her work to ensure that all of our children are having a successful school year and now summer program is really illuminated in this program. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to share this new partnership that we will be bringing to D34. For the first time, we are partnering with the Park District to enhance the experience for this summer of students who have experienced a great deal of loss over this pandemic. They are probably our most despondent. The parents are in need of this type of support. So we will be braiding something that ISB has authorized us to do, accessing multiple federal funds to support the same program. So a majority of the money will be Title I, low-income homeless students, Title III, English learners, and then a portion of it from ESSER. Each one, as you know, with any federal funding, has its own limitations. So by being able to braid the funding from 3 different federal sources, we will be able to meet the needs of the 40 students we seek to support this summer through this experience. This summer program will allow them to have opportunities to be integrated with kids they may not have ever experienced, maybe making friendships with, and also just being able to have a foundation of experiences that they can then connect to when they learn new words, when they're being instructed by their teachers. It's those life experiences that then allow them to actually understand and remember what they learn in the classroom.
Thanks. Does anybody have any?
Just a comment, I think this is fantastic. Way to go. I think this is a wonderful partnership. We have this wonderful park district, and it's great to see us coming together and doing something good for our students. So thank you so much for the work you've done on this.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that. I really appreciate that we're partnering with our park district. We have so many great resources in this community. I really like to see us all working together. This alludes to that award that we shared with the park district for Camp Rec, and we're building on it. Thanks for reaching out and making this work.
I just want to echo what Scott and Netta said, and with the creativity of braiding different funding sources to actually make it happen. So really kudos. That's fantastic.
Thanks again. All right. Now we come to our audience comments section. Kathy, do we have any audience comments? Wow. Okay. Thank you. I'm not going to read the whole thing then. Do we have one? Okay. I'll read it then. This is a second opportunity for audience comments. Anyone wishing to address the board can submit a comment card and give it to the director.
Sorry.
Yeah. I just got to get through it.
Oh, that's fine.
Director will call community members who submit cards forward. They will be asked to introduce themselves and describe their relationship with the district. Please know that the board will be taking notes and we will be in listening mode. And an appropriate response will be given in a timely manner. We also ask that you submit 1 comment per opportunity and keep your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Dr. Mary Carlton, parent of 2 D34 students. Just a quick clarification, I guess. I think it was at the end of February, early March. There was an ATIA newsletter. They came out. It had a little blurb about the PTA. I can't remember now what it was about, but inviting volunteers in for some program that they were doing, and it mentioned something that the volunteers must show proof of vaccination. I just wanted to clarify, since that's not mandatory of staff or students that I'm aware of. If I go in as a parent, do I have to show proof of vaccination even though it's in the district? And if PTA is something separate that can make up their own rules. So that's a quick thing. Somebody can email me, or if you want to clarify it now, I just wanted quick clarification on that.
Go ahead.
As a volunteer.
We'll give you a clarification.
Okay. I thought it was a little odd, but.
Yeah, and I worked with the PTAs to clarify this, that vaccination is not required of, proof of vaccination is not required of volunteers or of staff.
Okay. I just wanted to. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. All right, now we'll move on to report section. We have the Foia report, the True North board meeting report, the Phase 1 construction change order report, the monthly budget report, the current year financial projections, the referendum expense report, and the following meeting agenda. Anybody have any questions on those reports? Mike?
On the Foia report, which I don't normally have a question, but the request from Mr. Novak seems quite expansive. Should we read anything into that to understand what the get is here? And I mention it specifically because it says the following information for all board members. And I don't need an answer now, but I just would like to.
There was a similar request, actually almost identical, just worded slightly differently in the previous FOIA update. That seems to be our attorney said that seems to be a standard request that are going out based on something that was going around YouTube. So that the response was much of that information doesn't actually exist.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
All right. So Kathy, can we show that video? All right.
Wait, I still have a question. I wanted
Oh,
to
go
say.
ahead, yeah.
Or just a comment. The current year financial projections obviously look quite favorable, like we're showing trending toward $4 million over budget. Like, at some point, do we have a discussion about what to do with that? I mean, could that be a source for helping pay for some of these construction pieces? Or
Can we reallocate like that?
Well, we're projecting a deficit already for next year's budget though, right?
So, a couple of things here. This current year financial projection report, it's when there are known financials that come in over budget. The year's not done yet, so there's very much a chance, though, property taxes, some of this money is property taxes that we were expecting last year. So I'd hate for the board, number one, to act on an unbudgeted expense item when the year's not quite done yet. When the year's
I wasn't suggesting today. I was just trying to. Is this an opportunity to help
Optimism's good.
with some of the issue on, like, for example, the referendum or the.
But once the year's
construction
done and we've sort of declared this a surplus, absolutely, the board can have that discussion. We can incorporate it into the budget to be expended during FY23. That's absolutely part of.
So
What the
it does flow into the fund balance. Is that where it goes?
It does. That'd be
So it
operating
flows into the fund balance, and we've seen the projections on the fund balance. So yes, it definitely is a discussion item for our future possible cost overruns with construction.
Yeah.
No question. But as we've seen with the CFAC presentation,
And we're just in the process now of, putting the draft FY23 budget together. So we'll know in the coming months.
but keep managing to surplus.
Yes.
Perfect. Don't misinterpret what we're saying.
Noted.
We're not objecting.
Very good, very good.
Thanks, Eric. Jim, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, I saw that too. If we get it up to about 20 million, we're in good shape.
Good shape, yeah.
I do think it will go up before the year's.
Okay. So I saw on Twitter today there was a thing, and it was some first graders, and they say they were telling everybody, "May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be filled with peace." I think it's a good thing to hear right now.
We were inspired by the book I Am Human, a book of empathy by Susan Verde and illustrated by Peter Reynolds. And there's a loving kindness meditation at the end that we'd like to share with you.
May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be peace. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be filled with peace. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be filled with peace. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be filled with peace. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be filled with peace. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be filled with peace.
Those are our first graders.
Darling.
That was fantastic. And with that, I'd like to declare the meeting adjourned.
One more thing, sorry.
Sure. All right.
I want to put a shout out to the Glenview Police and Fire Departments for spending time on our school buildings, interacting with our kiddos, and I think building those relationships when kids are young is so critically important. So I hope you'll take that back to the chief.
High Five Friday, right? Yeah. Meeting adjourned.